Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And today we're going to be looking at a unit that got their skill fusion actually not a while ago for the Exalted Champions meta, but didn't really have a good use until this current Ogre's Pride meta. And that's because his skill is kind of taken up by a few other units, but also wasn't useful for Exalted Champions at all. And of course, we are talking about what you see in front of you, Dark Veldora. Dark 1.0 Veldora, one of the very first characters to ever release as part of the very first meta of this game's life cycle. So he got his skill fusion during his Exalted Champions, and it takes his ult damage 60% and pierce resistance down skill, and it turns it into, I believe, a 70% ult damage and 30% pierce resistance down. Now, Exalted Champions, the nuker was Milim. She had 100% ult, so we didn't need that for her. And the team was synergy focused and not pierce focused, so we really didn't need this. But now that we're in the Ogre's Pride meta, and people are like, hey, I need a good substitute for Elmesia because she's a limited unit and not a lot of people have pulled for her, this Veldora might actually be a solid option because the Ogre's Pride team needs an alt buffer, and it's Pierce focused. You have Benimaru giving 100% Pierce power, you have Momiji giving Pierce rate, and if you can combine alt damage and some Pierce resistance down, that will help your damage out more than one of the other alt buffers that is only doing 80% alt or 70% alt and like water resistance down or something like that for Water Shuna. So this skill could actually be fairly impactful. Let's go ahead and fuse it, and then we'll test him out on the Ogre's Pride team. Okay, so the immediate first, quote-unquote, issue that we have is that Veldora is, 1, not on Ogre's Pride, and 2, he's physical, which does not help Momiji's EX board because she gets more stats the more magic characters you have. Veldora is not magic. He has no orb-changing skills, he just has his alt buff, and then his second skill is pretty useless. Crit damage down by 14%, which actually, is not that useful, or not that useless now that I'm thinking about it. I just didn't remember which one it is. This goes up to, what does it go, 20%? We might just level this up all the way. Yeah, 20%. You know what? Let's go ahead and level this up too. We'll use some of these that I have just a lot of. Because the stage does have a lot of crit damage, they do raise their crit rate and damage towards the end of the fight, and for lower level players that could be an issue because they might hit you a bit too hard. That could actually be useful, so never mind. He's got good use. Okay, so both of his skills can be helpful here, but we're really looking for that ult and that pierce resistance down. We already know what Momiji can do with Elmesia, and we're not going to get to that point. But I think Veldora can still be a fairly solid option for the team if you can skill fuse him. And even if you can't skill fuse him, he's still, I think, going to be okay, because 60% and pierce resistance down is still fairly good. Okay, I mean, I don't think we need to sit here and commentate everything, so I think I'll just go out on some weird tangents while we do this. But Veldora came out as part of the very first meta, which was the only meta that had 4 individual relevant banners, which was pretty awful, and they never did it again. They only cut it down to 3, so they only got rid of 1, but it was certainly something. Okay, that's an excellent hand right there. Let's get Violet in for Veldora, because the Dark 1.0 meta, the first banner was Diablo and Xion. The second banner was, I think, Veldora. The third banner was Milim, and then the fourth banner was the Dark AoE Rimuru. I may have gotten Milim and Veldora's banners mixed up as far as sequence, but still, the fact remains that there was 4 banners for the Dark meta, and they never did it again. And that's where a lot of the YouTubers dropped the game, because it was too many banners in one single month, and not a lot of value at the time. And it was just a different point in the game's life cycle versus nowadays, where we got EX characters, and sometimes we have only 2 banners a month because of the anniversaries, half anniversaries. And Veldora really hasn't been super duper useful since he came out. because the teams that focus on Pierce, they're already getting ult damage. His skill at the time was not super impactful either, so we didn't really need him. And now that we've actually got a good stacking blue team with Pierce, a lot of Pierce, now it's become a bit more relevant, and that's why I wanted to showcase him today. Because he's an old unit. He's literally from the very first month of the game, and if you've been playing for any decent amount of time, chances are you might actually have him with dupes. Now you still need him to be at level 100 to even take a shot at getting him skill fused, which is really, really, really unfortunate. But if you do have the option and you need an alt buffer, he's going to be pretty good. Alright, this is actually not what I wanted to do. Hopefully this hits an orange and a green. Oh, it didn't. Okay, well that's unfortunate. Okay, well. Oh well. I mean, we're not going for tippity top maximum damage anyways, so we'll just go ahead and send it. Train of thought is now gone. What was I saying? Veldora has not received a whole lot of love in this game. We got this Veldora, we got Vengeance Veldora, we got Protector Veldora for the first anniversary, we got the free-to-play Exalted Champions Veldora, who is really good. I mean, he's really good, thank God. But Veldora is not a unit that sees a whole lot of mileage in this game, alongside a number of other characters who either just straight up do not have representation, or only have one summonable character like Albus, when she should have had like 4. But, we don't really talk about that, do we? Soe, thankfully, just got his newest summonable unit after over 2 years, and thankfully, he's really good. Thank God. And I'm actually, after I'm done recording this video, I'm going to record the Earth Soe skill fusion video as well, and we can all giggle and laugh at a simpler time, right? But there are a lot of characters that still need more representation for how quote-unquote important Veldora is to the story. You don't really see him a lot, and he actually doesn't really do a whole fuck ton in the anime anyways. Now, that could be horribly different for the light novels and manga. I'm sure it is. Don't tell me, don't spoil me, I don't read it for reasons. I just know that based on what I've seen in the anime, they just tell him to sit and go read some shit and go guard the gates, or we'll use you as backup just to appease him. He's pretty simple-minded. They don't really make use of his full power because he's a calamity, right? He's gonna blow some shit up, and that's not really what you're looking for. All right, okay, cool, thank you. And we'll bring Violet in, and we'll use this. We don't have a lot, well, we have less, keyword, less big-time 80-point skills, so we should be able to get away with 351 points here. Should being the keyword. So let's see what kind of damage we actually end up doing here with the magic buff, the weakness strike, and all that. So, magic buff, boom, and then we'll bring in Veldora for Violet. I hope I have enough points, actually. 55, so there's the pierce resistance down. Here's the ult damage up, and then we'll bring Soe in, and we have 216, which is not enough. Not enough points. Okay, well, we'll come back. Hold on. Okay, we are back on turn 8. We have already used both the Blanc and the Violet magic buff on Momiji, so she is ready to go. We'll take you out for Blanc. So we don't need to use that much here. So, let's see. We've got 3, so 8, 16, 24. Well, 8, 16. We do need to use a few different skills here to get up to the 100% power, so maybe I shouldn't have used both skills, but we also probably wouldn't have had enough. Well, maybe. Oh well. Let's see. Let's get Violet out for Veldora. Let's use his 55-point skill. So that's Pierce Resistance down and ult damage up. We'll use both of Momiji's skills. Alright, so that's Pierce rate, Synergy down, Fire attack. We are still at 50%, so we could do... I don't know if this will get us to that magical position. Yeah, it's not. Okay, so we're gonna be underpowered for this, but it's not really gonna matter. This is EX2, so they don't have that much health to begin with. This is quite an overkill-y team. We could have left Zoe off, we could have left Violet off, and we would have probably been just fine. So let's go ahead and nuke with Momiji. We know that like the big sweaty team can do 28, 29, 30-something million damage. This Veldora should help Momiji hit a pretty reasonable number, all things considered. Let's find out how reasonable it is, though. Man, the more I look at these alts, the more I'm just horribly depressed with Shuna's ult. It's just so stupid and basic. Oh, they really phoned it in for that one. Alright, what do we get out of here? 10 million! I mean, yeah, again, we were all cracked out on support, and we definitely only needed 600,000 damage to do, but, I mean, that's fairly good. I wonder how much we do with just Momiji and Veldora. We'll make a cut, and we'll just use their buffs, and we'll see what they do. Okay. Let's see how much damage just Momiji and Veldora do together. So, synergy rate, synergy resistance down, pierce, fire attack, and then ult damage and pierce resistance down. Now, Veldora's 70% ult damage does combine and stack with Benimaru's because one is a temporary buff and one is a permanent buff. So instead of getting overshadowed and only having 80, this is actually 150% ult damage, which always, is nice. And then we'll activate the one last stack, so it's 160%, but now we have the extra 100% pierce power as well. So Momiji's going to be looking pretty good here, and again, they don't have that much HP, so we're going to insta-kill, and we do 1.8. I mean, for just the Protector Momiji and then a different support character who's quite old, that's a lot of damage. That'll kill, well, that won't kill Inferno 1, because they got 3 million, but that's triple the amount of HP that they have for EX2, off of one old skill fuse in it, and then the first banner. Right, we didn't use any of the other buffs from the team, it was just those 3 skills. That's pretty good right there. Let's try them out somewhere else now. Alright, next we're going to be taking the Fire Violet team into Tempered Edge versus Clayman. We're going to be using Toa, so now we don't have a protector that gives us Pierce. So we're going to bring Dark Xion, another old character, also Dark Physical. She'll give guaranteed Pierce and Pierce Power, which we can then combine with Veldora's ult damage and Pierce resistance down, and then Violet is giving herself Pierce rate as well. So we'll benefit from all 3 skills here. We're going to use Bride Shizu as a sub-protector because she has a trait that lowers Pierce resistance even more, and in theory, this should work quote-unquote fine. Fine. We'll see. Okay, so turn 1, since we are using Violet, we do not want to have her up front because Clayman puts that crit nerf on, so we're just going to bring Benimaru in, change those, and then send them. Does put a stack of burn on, which is nice. Benimaru has Megamine underneath him, so we're going to get a little bit of extra protection gauge, but not a lot. Okay, well it's not a terrible hand, actually. Well, it could be better. Okay, we're just going to convert it then with Toa. So we'll use the instant damage from Benimaru just for funzy onesies. Boom. It'll buff the damage on the oranges, and then we'll swap Benimaru out for Violet. And this will get us her ult. And since she's not an EX character, we don't need to worry about giving her, 6 orange orbs or anything like that. And then we'll use her own buffs. And, well, yeah, we don't need to do anything else. All we need now is 1 Toa and maximum points to be able to use both the Xion buff and the Veldora buff. So we just need to get another protector gauge in this next turn. But we're going to send Violet away so we can hold on to her attack buff. Violet is skill fused, so she is getting an extra 10% attack, which is nice, I guess. All right, let's let's take you out for Violet, and then let's use a few of your skills. So self-convert, special convert, boom, boom. Full hand right there. We can bring Benimaru in now because he's going to do more damage than Triad does. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Shion doesn't really matter. 69, nice. 66, not as nice. But we now have max points, or we should have close to max points, and we have another Toa, which means that we can use, yeah, we do have max. We can use both Veldora's buff and Shion's buff, so we'll just take Benimaru out. Boom. We have 1 stack of burn, and it should be enough, hopefully, maybe. All right, so Soul of Combos, 70%, Pierce Resistance down, 30%. Cool. We'll use Toa to give ourselves the extra 40 points, and then that gives us enough to use Shion's skill, which is Pierce Rate and Pierce Power. And I don't think we need to use anything else here, and not that we have any points to use anything. Yeah, none of that matters. Okay, so let's see how much damage Violet can do here. Does he have? He doesn't have an ult effect. They don't have those back then. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Are we able to kill? I hope so. Veldora. Actually, we haven't seen his ult. He's the showcase character, and we haven't even watched it yet. Draconic Burst. It does have a nice effect. It reminds me of Dragon Ball Z, splitting the skies. And, oh, 26,000. Incredible. Violet should do a bit more than that. Should do a tiny bit more than that. Alright, Nihilistic Vanish. You're going to do like 150, 200k, somewhere around there? 182. Well, okay, yeah. We were right smack dab in the middle of that prediction. Alright, 47k. The burn's not going to kill him. Only 46k. Alright, that is a little bit unfortunate. I kind of was hoping for a bit more damage out of that, but it's not the case. Okay, well, maybe Shion is not the correct option since Violet's already giving her Pierce, and the 20% is not that impactful. Let's come back and we'll bring Christmas Shizu instead. Alright, we are back on turn 4. Again, 100 points, another Toa. We now have the Benimaru ult up front, which we technically had last time too, but oh well. So, let's go ahead and use Veldora's buff, because his buff will affect, the ult damage will affect Violet in the back, and the Pierce Resistance down is a debuff, so it doesn't really matter who's up front for that. So, we'll go ahead and do that, and then we could send him away, or we could send Trio away, either one. They only have 1 orb each. So, we'll just do Veldora, because we said it. And then we'll take Tria out for Christmas Shizu, who now has her own Pierce Power buff right here, 15%, which was almost as good as what Shion was doing last time, so we're not losing anything. But we are gaining the 50% fire attack and 30% fire resistance down skill, which is much more impactful. Now we should have no problem taking out Clayman. So we'll send... Yeah, we'll just send you first. So we don't have a follow-up orb for Violet to see what her normal orb damage will do, but I am 100% confident that Clayman is dead here. Benimaru, sure, we'll watch his ult. Why not? We don't see it very often. Okay. So, we've exchanged 20% Pierce Power and Pierce Rate for essentially a 7% buff and then 15% Pierce Power. So, much stronger. 288, yeah, a whole 100k. We got a whole extra 100,000 damage off of that for swapping out Shion for Christmas Shizu. So if you have Christmas Shizu, great. And you don't even need her skill fuse, because even without the fire resistance down, that's the only thing she gets off that skill fusion. That's still solid damage. And Veldora definitely did help out, because we were getting Pierce Power, she's giving herself Pierce Rate, and then the Pierce Resistance down from Veldora does impact your damage there. Alright, final part of the test is another Pierce team, another old team, the Light 2.0 Bride team. Bride Shizu, Groom Rimuru, Bride Shion, and Bride Shinsha. Veldora, we are getting Pierce from Shizu and Pierce Power from Shion. Rimuru technically does lower Pierce Resistance by 30%, just as much as Veldora does, and he does it for 2 turns. But it's also attached to his extra alt gauge on Green's skill. So we're going to use his skill early so we can get extra alt gauge for Xion. And then when this runs out, we will then pop the alt damage from Veldora, and that will activate his 30% pierce resistance down. We are already getting 10%, a whole whopping 10% alt damage from Bride Shizu. Doesn't really fucking matter. Increases alt damage by 10%. Whoop-de-friggin' do. Man, what a time. Light 2.0 was just a different age overall for this game. But the hero will give us crits. Free-to-play Shinsha will give us that small 15% light attack buff. And then Xion is skill fused, so she's going to get extra pierce power just starting out. And it'll go higher and higher every time we use a skill for the first 3 turns. Okay. No set starting hands, but I think we can just make this work anyways. We'll just take Veldora out, and we'll bring Shinsha in for the hero, and we'll just send these blue orbs. 1, 2, 3, 4 on Shinsha herself, since she'll be much tankier once she gets her defense and everything. We have defense and guard rate. Xion doesn't get that, so we're going to leave her a little bit untouched. Okay, thank you, thank you. Perfect, actually. So let's use the Pierce Resistance Down debuff skill, which is going to give us the extra alt gauge. We want to use... Okay, I'm not on the wrong character. Alright, whatever. But we want to use as many skills as possible. So 1 and 1. Because we want to increase not only the pierce rate that we're getting from Shizu, because it goes up by 5% every time, but also the pierce power from Xion, up to 49%. 3% each time we use a skill for the first 3 turns. So as many points as possible is what we are looking for. God, I haven't seen this animation in forever. I haven't seen any of these units' animations in forever. Why? Because they're old as shit, and they're not really useful anymore. Alright, so there she changes 3 and 3 to 6 greens, and we'll go ahead and send this. This should get us her ult. Yep, perfect. Actually, let's bring the hero in. Let's bring the hero in for Shinsha. Yeah, because I want to rewind and get more pierce power off of this. Oh, oh no, we are, because we left Reamer up front. Good. And we have the hero, and she's got turn 3 protection gauge. So we're good there. Yeah, we did a lot of damage right there. Only 1 orb change necessary. 2, technically, if we want to do this. So let's do Reamer's orb change. We'll do the alt swap ability. Not alt swap, sorry, rewind, my bad. And then we'll take out Xion for Shinsha. Actually, we'll take... I really wish that was a blue, and I really wish I didn't use Reamer's first. Slight misplay right there. Okay. We will swap you out. We'll use the light buff now, because it's just another skill. And then we can take Xion out for Veldora, and we have enough points to use the crit damage down, which we'll put on Xion since she's giving herself crit. So we'll make use of that skill finally. Pierce rate should be up to 100% now or higher. Yeah, 105%, so whoop-de-doo. And we'll send this on Xion. The rewind will kick in. We have another 89 points to use any skills that we want to, like Rimuru and Shinsha's orb change. This will just help us buff up Xion's pierce rate pierce power even more. We cannot hit you anymore, so we'll switch over to Shinsha. And ooh. Yeah, well, I should have used the crit buff as well. Oh well, it is what it is. We'll just do this. We just have to make sure we get another Shizu. Okay, so now we should be all ready to go. 29k heal right there does not really matter all that much. We've already used the light buff from Shinsha on Xion, so we don't need to do that. We're now on turn 4, which means any skills we use now have no effect on the actual pierce power skill. And we will use Veldora's alt damage and pierce resistance down, since we are piercing quite a bit. And the pierce debuff from Rimuru has run out last turn, so we don't need to worry about them overlapping at all. And we'll bring you in. And we have enough points to use the Xion buff, which is now up to 61% pierce power, which is pretty good. So we'll be able to one-shot Shinsha, and then the follow-up attacks will take out Xion. And that'll be the end of the video. So we'll do 1, 2, well, no. We'll do 2, and then we'll send the rest of them just in case, because I want Xion to do both final hits. I don't know if her normal attack will actually kill the other Xion, though. Let's find out. But yeah, so Dark Veldora, a very old character, but especially with his Ogre's Pride team and a few other Pierce teams, he does have a little bit more value. I think he'll be most impactful on Ogre's Pride, since that just has a butt ton of Pierce damage and everything. 200k? That's pretty good. Oh, so close. We can let Rimuru take it out. Oh well. But even though he is physical and not technically on Ogre's Pride, I mean, a lot of the units we're using are not Ogre's Pride. Violet, Elmesia, Lumi, if you want to use her, Blanc, not on Ogre's Pride, so not really that big a deal. But he can contribute quite a bit. 70% ult damage to Momiji or Shuna, technically, and then the Pierce Resistance combined with the Pierce Rate, Pierce Power, does make a pretty significant impact. So Veldora, I think, his skill fusion, when he came out, was not good for Exalted Champions. It made no friggin' sense. But, a couple months later, he's actually kind of gotten a little bit extra value out of that. So, I think overall, now, his skill fusion is fairly good. And if you're going to ever use him in the future on the Ogre's Pride team, like maybe you don't have it complete now, but later down the line when Ogre's Pride comes back and you have Veldora, maybe you don't have the dupes for him now, but maybe you pull him off of all the free tickets and you can get him to level 100, you can skill fuse him, I think he'd be a solid option. And even right now, without his skill fusion, I think he's an okay option, substitute for a different alt buffer for that team. But let me know what you guys think. That's it from me, guys. Take it easy, and I will see you all later.